Welcome, everyone. Hey, are you worried about a coming recession? Does inflation bother you? Are you looking maybe to think about starting a side hustle, a little side hustle to bring in some extra cash? Well, this week we're going to tell you about the four key components that you need before you start any new business. It's all right here on this week's episode of the State of Greater Western New York Report, which, as always, is brought to you by...
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard. The Linden Honey Falls Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. Join us each episode as we discuss fantastic topics ranging from history to science to the strange and the wonderful, as well as the treasured spirit with which our region has infused America. We challenge you to consider all things Greater Western New York, from our region's very beginnings to how it inspires, how it empowers, and why it is so admired. Here's the host of the State of Greater Western New York Report, Chris Carosa.
Well, hi there, and welcome to this very special edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. We're going to be talking about what it takes to start a business. Now, this isn't going to tell you the nuts and bolts of actually starting the particular business that you want. This is more of an overview, a 30,000-foot level, things you need to have, traits you need to have that you can learn. It's not something that's secret. It's not something that's hard to do. It's just it takes a lot of practice and a lot of mental acuity, stick-to-itiveness, that sort of thing. Actually, that's going to be one of the traits we might be talking about. So let's start off with the four traits that you're going to need. And it really starts off with a very, very simple one, and that is just to be organized, which maybe you might think about this, oh, that's pretty common sense. Well, I'll tell you what, let's cut to the quick here. If you really want to know what this is all about, there was an article in Forbes that just came out a couple days ago, and that's what this show is going to be based on. So if you want to look at that article, it's called Retirees Must Have These Four Key Components to Make a Winning Side Hustle. We're going to be breaking that down, getting a little bit more in-depth on what you want to do. And the first thing, of course, is to be organized, which means that it's the sort of thing that it's intuitive. Yes, of course you need to be organized. Things have to be in a certain order. They have to be easy to find and recognizable and put together in a logical format that you could understand. And there's actually a little bit of a myth here when it comes to organization. This is what most people see as organization. It's a very neat desk. Everything's in its order. And look, it's organized. But there's a difference between neatness and organization. You don't want to confuse those two things. So, there's an old saying that if you want to get something done, you got to give it to a busy person. So who's busier, the person at this desk or the person at this desk? Now, so that's what I mean. So this desk might not look organized to you because it's not your desk. But that's okay because it's not your desk. If it were your desk, chances are you would know where everything was. I mean, this is how this desk looks to the typical person who is coming in and just seeing it for the first time. And by the way, organization could include your own computer files too. So what they're seeing is they're seeing a mess. Everything's strewn everywhere. They don't know what is what. It's all blank. It's all a guess. They haven't got a clue to what it is. But it's your desk, or in this case, it's your desktop. So for you, it looks like this. Everything is there. You know what each of those little pieces of paper means and where it is. And if you're going to go look for it, you know exactly where it is. Have you ever had this happen to you? You had a pile of papers somewhere, you're working on them, Maybe you haven't worked on it in a few weeks or even a few months, but there were a pile of papers there. And then one day you had somebody come in, whether it's your office or your home or whatever, and you had a quick clean up everything, put the papers there. Now, when you cleaned them up, you kept them in a certain order. But then after the person left, it was time to get back to work. You tried to put the papers back to where they were, but now you didn't know where anything was. So you had this physical mental memory of where everything was. That's how things are organized. It's not very efficient if you have to move papers around. But the point is that before you moved them around, you knew where everything was. When you took them away, you didn't. Now, there's a way to sort of get around that, and that is developing a sort of structure that is systematized. So nobody can move things around that'll mess you up. And we're going to use an example that'll show you what I mean by that. And by the way, this applies both to physical systems as well as information systems. You want these things to be organized so that anybody who walks in doesn't see this, they see this. I mean, this is the way you want to make it more efficient. This is the maximum organization that you have. If you work with other people, you're going to need to do this. If you don't work with other people, you may or may not want to do this. But let's look at an example. Yesterday, November 16th, was National Entrepreneurs Day. It was also National Fast Food Day. Hey, let's put those two together. We've done it in the past. And why not talk about the hallmark of fast food, McDonald's? And this picture here is one of the first McDonald's restaurants from the McDonald brothers, the guys who actually started the restaurant. And they're key here because it's not just what they did with the restaurant. By the way, they actually had another restaurant that they started before then, and it had an extensive menu. In 1948, they closed the whole thing down. They restructured it so that the menu was limited, and there's actually a good reason for that in terms of organization. It helps people who are coming in, the shoppers, the customers, the guests, the people who are going to be buying the food. It helps them organize their mind a little better because it's not cluttered with an entire list of menu. So the McDonald brothers decided we're going to simplify the menu, keep it low. That's what they did. And that was one of the great ideas that they had. The second great idea that they had was to not just have this good menu and this neat looking outside or exterior of the restaurant, but to work on the interior. They kind of mimicked Henry Ford. They developed an assembly line within the restaurant itself so that the entire process was organized and flowed through in a very logical format. In fact, the word is that one of the brothers went out on a tennis court with chalk and actually drew this schematic on who was going to be sitting where, standing where, I should say, and doing what, and how the workflow went. And he did that to try to really maximize the efficiency within the restaurant itself, within the physical restaurant. So he organized the kitchen in a way that made things go much more smoothly. So that's the first key component that you're going to need to have when you talk about what you're doing in terms of your business. But there's another element that's just as important. And this is one that when you think of entrepreneurs, that's what you really think about. When you think about what it takes to start a new business, and that's guts. You got to have guts. You got to have a certain amount of bravery, courage, maybe even bravado, but it's really guts, something that will push you forward. No matter what you see in terms of what you're facing. In fact, the guts, when you're starting a new business, there's a lot of elements against you. You have to stand up against this tide that is rising against you. You have to put up with people who are going to be talking you down. So you're going to have to face all that, and it takes guts to really go against the current and stand up against all those who are going to complain and criticize what you're doing and telling you why it won't work. And it's really a bit of a challenge to do that. And that's why we say that it takes guts. But what kind of guts? What kind of guts does it take? Well, this is the kind of guts that most people think of when they think of what entrepreneurs do. They think entrepreneurs are very risky people, that they take chances that normal people wouldn't take. In fact, they go so far as to think that maybe entrepreneurs really are gambling. That's the level of risk that they want to get engaged in. And if you look at it, remember, when we go back to what we were talking about before, about the desk that you see, that you don't understand where anything is, but if you knew where, if it was you who were doing it, I'm sorry, it's not that you don't understand what everything is, it's other people don't understand what you're doing. This is what they see on your desk. But what you see is this. So it's the same thing with risk. When you see risk, or when they see risk, they're going to be seeing something that is comparable to this. Or, I mean, this is the worst case. Or maybe in the best case, what other people will see is this kind of risk, that you're gambling with money and that you might be in a position to lose all that money. Well, here's the reality. The reality is you're not just taking a risk. Yes, there is some element of risk that you're engaging in, but it's not a pure risk. It's not a gamble risk. It's a calculated risk. It's a risk that you can manage, that you can control. So yeah, when you're thinking about starting a new business, it's risky. Don't get me wrong. Don't think otherwise. But you can control that risk. You can. I mean, if you want to go back to the gambling metaphor here, this looks like it's blackjack what they're playing. So if you're going to play blackjack, you know that if you got a 2 and a 10 going, that's 12, and your most likely card that you're going to get is a 10. You're not going to bet the house if you've got a 2 and a 10 showing. You know, if you've got an ace, say alone, and you've got something coming in, now you're going to bet a lot because you know the most likely card is a 10. And if you've got an ace, that means you're most likely to get 21. So this is what I mean about controlled risk. It's not that you have no risk at all. There is a risk there, but you can control how much you're going to place at risk because you know what the probabilities are. You know what the outcome is. Again, you go back to what we were talking about before. When you're looking at cards, this is what most people see in your cards. They don't really know what you have, but this is what you see. You know exactly what you have and exactly what you're doing. Doesn't mean there's no risk. What it means is that it's a calculated risk. Very, very important distinction. And it's one that, in fact, you could use going forward to make sure that it has a good feeling for you as far as moving forward with this business idea. You don't want to just dive into the deep end not knowing what all the risks are. You want to dive into the deep end, fine, that's fine, but you want to know where the lifeguard is, you want to know where the life raft is, or whatever it is to minimize the risk of diving into the deep end. And besides, the deep end is a lot more fun than the shallow end. So you do want to dive into the deep end, but you just don't want to do it willy-nilly. So anyway, so that's the first two components that you have when you're going to be starting a new business. When we come back, we're going to tell you about the next two important components.
Through the mists of time, nature and man have both created and buried treasures beyond the imagination. With the ages, these riches slowly dissolve into mere myths until they are forever forgotten. But there are those brave souls who tirelessly cling to the truth, ever seeking to discover the undiscovered, to reveal what has always been there, to uncover the hidden gems of a land thought forsaken but loved by millions. 50 Hidden Gems of Greater Western New York. Discover the secrets in your own backyard. Buy your copy now at 50hiddengems.com.
Oh, we just had a question from someone in the audience. How do I know when I'm in a risky situation? Well, that's a great question. It's very difficult to answer because it's all situation dependent. You have to look at what's around you. When you're starting a business, here's where to probably start. How much money are you going to be putting up to start this business? Because that is your first risk, the loss of all that money. So if you want to start, especially if it's a side hustle, you probably want to try to figure out a way to minimize the startup cost of starting this business. So for example, we're talking about franchises before, McDonald's. You don't necessarily want to buy a franchise without doing a lot of research into what that business model is, what it takes. Do you have what's needed? Are you in the right market where that franchise could be successful? It costs a lot of money to buy a franchise. So you just don't want to, this is an example where I'm saying diving into the deep end. You just don't want to dive into a franchise without doing all this research. So how do you know where the risk is? Start with how much money are you putting out? And that's what you want to minimize. Minimize the amount of money that you put out. For a lot of side hustles aren't necessarily franchises. It's a lot easier to start them up really on a shoestring budget. And that's kind of the best way to start one of these things, because if it doesn't succeed, you don't lose too much. Now, I'll tell you, there's a downside to this. If you're not putting in a lot of money, then you're not as motivated to make it succeed because you're not worried about losing the money. But we're talking about different aspects of psychology. Let's go back to our key components that you're going to need to have if you want to have a successful business. We're on number 3 right now. Number 3 is a favorite of all. It's persistence. It starts with a plan. You have to have a plan, and you have to be persistent in pursuing this plan. That's part of what persistence is. But here's where a lot of people get a hiccup. It's not just persistent in pursuing the plan, because there's a little saying out there. The saying goes, into each life, a little rain must fall. That means not every plan goes according to plan. In fact, how many plans have you ever done that didn't suffer from a little rain, that didn't go awry one way or the other? So the persistence really is your stick-to-itiveness. You are going to look at the rain not so much as a negative thing, but as a positive thing. You're going to embrace the rain. You're going to welcome the rain, because the brain looks at the rain and says, hey, rain, this isn't just rain. This is information. This is market research. This is data that is going to help me make my business better. Bottom line, if you're persistent, it means that you're going to keep going. You're not going to give up. They say, there's another saying that says if the shoe doesn't fit, you must. No, that's something else. But if you look at trying on shoes, you don't give up when one shoe doesn't fit. You're going to go and you're going to try on another pair of shoes. It might not exactly be the same. You might have to make some adjustments in what you want in terms of the shoe. It might not be the ideal shoe. But still, you're going to keep trying on the shoes until you find shoes that fit. And that's what persistence is. You just apply it to your business. When there's a problem with your business, you don't give up. You don't throw in the towel. You think. You think, what can I do next? What can I do to push this business to the next level? How can I make it better? You stick it out. You do a little tweak here and there, and then you move forward. You try it again. It's just like what Thomas Edison said about creating the light bulb. He didn't fail 1,000 times. He just learned 1,000 ways not to create a light bulb. And that is essentially what you're doing when you are being persistent. You just don't give up. You keep on trying. So this is all well, fine, and good. I mean, you can be organized, you can show that you have guts, and you can demonstrate that you're persistent. But it's another thing to actually do it. You can say all those things. You can actually mean that you want to do it. Believe that you're going to do it. But you won't do it unless you have this final key component, and that's discipline. So discipline is what takes you from the plan that you have through to the goal that you want to achieve. So you start with a plan, and you're gutsy. You're gutsy because you start with a plan. And you're organized. So you're confident that the plan will work. But then it rains, and you're going to have to change the plan. So you change the plan a little bit. You have to stay organized. You have to stay gutsy. You're being persistent because the rain's not bothering you. What's causing you to do these three things? It's that fourth thing. It's discipline. It's the one thing that really never stops. And another way to say this is you have this determination that you will succeed. You believe in yourself. You will succeed. Whatever it is you're going to do, it's going to work. You're determined to make it work. Nothing will get in your way. And in fact, this feeling is 24/7. It's open all the time. When you have a business, your business might close. You might have taken some time off from your business, but your business mind doesn't close. That keeps going. It has to keep going because you need to continue to push forward and really bring the business to whatever it is that you need to bring it to in order to succeed. It might be changing. It might be improving the product in some way. It might be going beyond the initial product to creating add-on products. You don't know. You don't know until the market tells you what it is that you want to do. So there people who are troubled by this, they look at life and they complain about the daily grind or being in a rut or mindlessly doing the same things over and over again. And in essence, that's what we're saying that you need to do. You know, this business that you're doing, even if it's a side hustle, it's really, I mean, this might sound like a cliche, but a successful business is like a well-oiled machine. I mean, it's going to be performing faithfully the same tasks ad infinitum in a reliable and predictable fashion. I mean, what you almost think of it as a perpetual motion machine. You know, things are going round and round and round, and they're never stopping because it works. The system works. Now, there could be a hiccup that you're going to have to go and you're going to have to, look, again, go back to this image over here where there might be some rain that dampens these sparklers that we have over here. But hey, if that happens, what are you going to do? You're not going to let those sparklers go out. You're going to say, hey, it's raining. How do sparklers work in the rain? Maybe I shouldn't be selling sparklers. Maybe I should be selling umbrellas. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to be determined enough so that you take your side hustle, you take your business, you display the discipline to go from your plan to the goal, and in effect, you create this well-oiled machine that's going to continue to push you forward into the success, into the realm that you'd like to be. Now, ultimately, what you want with this perpetual motion machine is you really want a perpetual money machine. You want something that keeps the cash flow flowing on and on and on, non-stop, in a way that continues to provide assets to you and to everybody who's in your little family, or if this is a business that hires people, that really helps them all out. So that's kind of what you're looking at when you're trying to start a business. Those four things. You want to have organization, guts, persistence, and discipline. And you can get by maybe having a little less on one or the other, but you really need to have all four to some extent, because this is a four-legged stool. This is not a three-legged stool. You want to be able to demonstrate and move forward and push forward every time you have something like this going on. All right, well, thank you for being a part of today's show. This has been a pretty fun little thing that you can do. Obviously, we'll continue to give you more information on starting businesses if you're interested. There's a series of shows that we've done in the past, and if you're watching this on the archive, you'll probably see those listed as being similar shows that you can watch. If you like this show, then you'll like that show. That's the sort of thing that pops up in the back, including the 5 traits of a successful entrepreneur, what you need to do that. If you want to be a part of the live audience, then you can just go to stateof.greaterwesternnewyork.com, sign up, and you will be informed Thursdays in the morning of the link that you need to go to be a member of the live audience, and then you can ask questions live just like we had going on before. If you just want to see this, you can go to our website, stateofgreaterwesternnewyork.com. It's archived there. You can watch it anytime. If you are a fan of our Facebook page, if you liked our Facebook page, this program is rebroadcast every Sunday at 1:30, and you'll be notified if you like it, if you like that page, you'll be notified when that broadcast starts. In a similar way, if you're on YouTube and you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will be notified again at 1:30 on Sunday when this is broadcast there, right? It's simulcast on both YouTube and Facebook at 1:30 every Sunday. So with that, I want to thank everyone for being a part of today's show. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you again at, not next week, because next week is what? Thanksgiving, right? So we're not going to have a show next week. But we will have a show the following week, and we will have a show, as usually, every Thursday, right here, where you're watching it right now. Thanks again, and see you in 2 weeks.